When I start conversations about courage, people often jump to hero figures like those serving in the military, firefighters, people doing scary jobs, or people undertaking adrenaline-fueled activities like parachuting, extreme sports, abseiling off huge buildings. Now, I'm not saying that these things don't create a real sense of power, of courage, of self-belief, by the way. This was really evident at Bravefest last year. That conquering the zip wire or the high ropes was much, much more about conquering yourself than the activity itself. The thing is, courage is always an inside job. It's a way of being. It's how you show up, whether you stand in your own truth, whether you take action when you want to. It's essentially about being able to step beyond your comfort zone and pursue the life that you really want. Let's talk about fear for a minute. Fear and courage go hand in hand. If you don't feel the fear, are you really being courageous? Fear is part of who we are, and however we mask it, however macho we think we're being, fear seeps through. And that's okay. It's human. It keeps us alive, and it causes us to pause before jumping into something that puts us at risk, whether that risk is real or imagined. Nelson Mandela notably said, "I learned that courage was not an absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." Yet the fear that you create in your own head is usually the most paralysing. You know, the stories you run, the what ifs, the not enoughs, the I can'ts, or even the I shoulds. And there's no real upside to this. I believe feel the fear, analyse it, and decide whether to act or not. And if you choose not, then let it go. I know I'm making this sound super simple, but you know it's like everything else. The way you train your brain to respond is how you show up by default. The way you react most often becomes your neural fast track. If you don't like what you see, or you feel like you're too stuck in your own head, then here are a few things to help you take action or let go of stuff. First of all, do what you believe in. When something really matters to you, you're much more likely to put yourself out or at risk for it. But you can't believe in everything, and not every cause, however worthy, is your cause. So be clear about what's really important to you, what lines you're not prepared to cross, and what battles you simply won't walk away from. And if you don't know the answer to this, this is your starting point. This is your first step to being more courageous. It's easy to be courageous about the stuff that really matters to us. It's not so easy to be courageous with the noise in our head. This is when taking action becomes super important. Your brain can't differentiate between the real and the imagined. It produces the same hormones if you're sitting worrying about something or if you're literally running for your life. Clearly, in the first scenario, you don't need that chemical reaction, so your body doesn't recalibrate. You can't let go of the stress indicators like cortisol, low dopamine, which will impact on your well-being and your sense of self-worth if you let them persist. If you're going around in circles with something, create a state break for yourself. Now, this might be something physical like getting up and moving around, going for a run, a walk, or whatever your thing is. It might be a stimuli like music, a certain smell, even stroking a pet. Or it might actually be as simple as taking a few deep breaths. And this works because it recalibrates your nervous system. It creates the opposite physiological reaction to fear. It's not just an expression. Next, look at your stories. Are you keeping yourself trapped with what you tell yourself? I'm not going to go into depth with this here, but take a look at my 3-part blog on the power of story if you think that you may need to work on your story. If fear's keeping you stuck, what do you need to do to break free? Push the edges of your comfort zone every day. This is a habit, and your brain likes habits. If this is how you regularly behave, you'll start to normalize new stuff. You'll start to live with fear and act on it rather than reacting to it. Whether this is in your head again or it's actually the actions that you take. Be prepared to be vulnerable. Nobody likes feeling vulnerable, it's horrible, but staying safe is suffocating, and I know which I prefer. Vulnerability comes in many guises, and having the confidence to say, I don't know, or having that difficult conversation with somebody, or even yourself if it's your story that's in the way, doing something unfamiliar, going somewhere where you may feel out of your depth, standing up for yourself or your beliefs when you know that's not going to be popular, all of those things make you feel vulnerable. All of them are necessary if you're going to be courageous. Most humans understand vulnerability, unless of course you're a psychopath. Most humans produce oxytocin, the purveyor of empathy, in response to another person's vulnerability. Most will hold space and help you through. Some will feel uncomfortable and rush to protect themselves. That's their issue. A few will take advantage of you. they're not worth your response. Vulnerability builds trust. It takes courage, and I would always say, be vulnerable appropriately. And by this I mean, don't spill your stuff over everybody all of the time. Choose your audience. Treat other people with dignity and respect, and that will come back to you. If you feel like you need to be a little more courageous, I'd say my top tip is just start. Pick something where the stakes are not too high, accept that we are all work in progress, and take that leap. Being courageous is a habit. It takes practice, and often you won't notice how much more courageous you are until you look back and see how far you've come. Trust and support are vital, and hanging with the right people makes a massive difference. If you want to be part of the Brave community, join the Braver Business Group, and I'll look forward to sharing your courageous journey in there.